Might as well just finish the review there, really. What? So apparently I have to tell you useful things about the car. So let's do that. So here we have the Audi R8 RWS, which stands for Rear Wheel Series, although it does still have front wheels, as you can see. But unlike all the other models in the R8's relatively short history, this one isn't a Susie Quattro. It's rear-wheel drive. That short history started in 2003 with the Le Mans Quattro, a concept car that a couple of years later turned into the production R8 virtually unscathed. Instant classic. The first R8 looked like a supercar, had a couple of the world's greatest engines, and had an open-gated manual gearbox that was without doubt the second most enjoyable thing that anyone could pull on while sat alone in a chair. It's not what car? It was pure theatre from every angle, and yet it was as easy to drive and live with as a TT, apart from minor practicality loss owing to the engine being in the boot. And the basic one, which was also arguably the best one, cost less than 80 grand. Well, now we're into the second generation of the R8, and you can no longer get a V8 model, no longer get a manual gearbox, and certainly no longer get a new one for anywhere near £80,000. However, despite Audi's assertion that the RWS model here is for customers with an appreciation for essential driving enjoyment, it's also for customers with an appreciation for saving money, because it's 13 odd grand cheaper than the four-wheel drive one. Not only is it missing the centre differential and all the shafts that make up the four-wheel drive system in other R8s, it's also got fixed suspension, non-adjustable that is, and the engine is the lower powered one. So it's still a V10, but it's only got 540 PSs, whereas the V10 Plus has 610. And the interior is a little bit more basic than in the other R8s. You know, plain of plastic around the gear selector and the air vents. What we have here then is today's basic R8. And as before though, also arguably the best. And in fact, if you take the rough starting price of a 2007 R8 and you adjust it for inflation, what do you know, you come up with the rough starting price of this. And this one is limited to just 999 copies. And although that hardly makes it a Fabergé egg, it does mean that it'll hold its value well if you're a total investment banker. A well-priced car then, you could argue. And you should argue that, because truly this is a phenomenal driving experience. The R8 always was, right? But drive this one and slowly but surely you'll realise that it's probably the best one there is. In taking out the centre differential and all the shafts and things that make the Quattro system work, the RWS here is 8 stone lighter. And so while it loses out to the equivalent R8 Quattro on paper statistically, doesn't have the straight line traction basically. And of course loses out to the V10 Plus because it doesn't have as much power. From the driving seat here, that number stuff is far less important. For a start, there's the histrionics of that thing back there, which is among the last and very best of a dying breed of massive capacity non-turbo engines. It absolutely screams up to 8,500 RPM, and in doing so, makes one of the world's best noises. Not just engine noise, all the noise. Obviously, there are lots of people who just want the most expensive or the most fastest version of a thing, which is fair enough. And the V10 Plus really does flatten you to the back of your chair noticeably more aggressively than this one does. But if you value the art of getting left to right more than you value the feeling of getting to the speed limit, obviously, as quickly as you possibly can, then for me, the RWS here has that bit more to offer. So you'll know the drill by now. You free up the front wheels just to do the steering stuff and the rear wheels to handle the power, and you get a quote-unquote pure driving experience. Give the front wheels just that one job, they'll do it better. But actually for me, there are two things that this R8 doesn't have that contribute probably more to making it a much more interesting driving experience: adjustable suspension and dynamic steering. Instead, you get fixed suspension and a fixed steering ratio. Now that means that Audi Sport has given this car one straight setup, which is quite rare for a car like this. So you can still change the throttle response and the gearbox aggression and the exhaust noise, but that's the sort of stuff that you'll find in a mid-level hot hatch. For a six-figure supercar type thing, it feels wonderfully pared back. Not in the same way as like a Porsche 911 GT3 is, but more like somebody who's a better driver than we are has decided that this is how an R8 should feel. This is how it should steer and ride and handle. Just the one setup. The result is, well, it's probably the best pound for pound sports car in the world. Notice I didn't say supercar or driving experience. The R8, well, particularly this R8, doesn't feel like a supercar. It just doesn't have the sense of high techiness or the raw power. And nor is it the best sheer thrills driving experience you can have for this sort of money either. That award goes to the Porsche 911 GT3. Instead, this is just brilliantly well-rounded. Now, we'd expect that having well over 500 horsepower running through just the rear wheels and with the engine back there as well would be absolutely terrifying. It's just got so much grip that actually you sort of forget that it's rear wheel drive. It is not in any way scary. It's just pure fun. You can accelerate right out of a corner with lock on and it just goes round. The main difference is the steering just has that little bit more sharpness and that little bit more feedback. It's that combination. It's the traction, the sound, the sharpness of the steering, the balance. They all combine to make the R8 just feel like a really pleasant, non-intimidating but hugely fun driving experience. It's just shifted the balance slightly so that it feels like more of a sports car, more enjoyable to steer and less of a, brutal four-wheel drive supercar. But it's just so easy to live with too. Drive gently and with the gearbox in comfort mode and the exhaust not on loud, and it's all relatively unobtrusive. It's not quiet obviously, but it's manageable. It doesn't feel like your ears are getting battered, you could still listen to Radio 4 or whatever. And the ride quality, samesies. It helps you out when you're driving normally, shall we say, by being moderately comfortable.
It's all relative.
Obviously, but you'd expect a car with such a categorical aversion to body roll to be a turbulent nightmare, but this isn't. And yet, it generally avoids the main issue that some sports cars with more supple damping have, and that's a tendency to
bounce, 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 bounce.
I mean, it might look like it's bouncing, but it doesn't feel like it is, which means it's just got this lovely flow about it. Tell you what, backhoe visibility is not good, consumers. So we should probably talk at length about the practicality and consumer stuff now. Yeah, who cares? Glove box in front of the windscreen, 2 cup holders. Although I would say that Audi's decision not to put a touchscreen in the middle of the dashboard is a good one, because if you look at the cabin of the last R8, that particular feature is something that's already aged it horribly. And Audi's MMI infotainment system, which is now all housed inside the virtual cockpit right in front of you, is really pleasant to use. In conclusion, just buy one. It's proper mint. The end. Normal service resumes next week. We'll be reviewing a small Volvo and we'll talk much more about door pockets and engine ranges and all that interesting stuff. Look forward to that. Bye!